Welcome to Friday 15 with Master B2B. My name is Brian Beck. I'm here with my partner in this thought leadership endeavor, Mr. Andy Hoare. Andy, welcome to Friday 15 here, November 8th. We have got a great episode today, lots to talk about. How's your Friday, Andy?
Good. Got football coming up this weekend. That's never a bad thing. The college football playoffs came out the same night as election night, which is funny because I think people might have been more interested in that than the election itself. But
right. Yep.
Four Big Ten teams, 4 SEC teams.
Yep. It's going to be an interesting end of the season here. My team is so far out of it at this point. Oh boy, my poor Rutgers Scarlet Knights, who started strong and died quick. Anyhow, hopefully we'll at least get to a bowl game. Anyhow, folks, we got a great series we're going to be talking about today. And in fact, we got so much packed here. We're going to skip our breaking news this week and go straight into the topic, which is how do B2B e-commerce executives manage marketing tracking challenges? Andy, this is a huge deal. I mean, we're talking about companies that have taken away the ability for marketers to effectively track what their marketing is actually doing, their advertising. So let's define the issue first, Andy. You pulled together some good information and background on this. Why don't we go ahead and dive in and explain what the issue is that marketers are dealing with?
Yeah, so this is all about privacy, and it's really critical to understand the foundation here, which is this difference between first-party cookies and third-party cookies. So first-party cookies are cookies that enhance your experience on a single website. Okay, and this is going to come into play here in a moment. Third-party cookies allow you to track activities across multiple websites. And, the Google ad network, for example, was predicated on this idea of third-party tracking, because then you can, as an advertiser, you can follow people across various websites. So just keep this in mind that Google is really predicated on this. Their entire business model is based on third-party cookie tracking, and not just them, but others. But what got us thinking about this was this article we saw in the Wall Street Journal saying that Facebook was scheduled to lose $10 billion because of a single decision that Apple made. That decision was to change the privacy settings and allow people to opt out. Basically, you had to opt in to do it. And so in a heartbeat, it changed the entire scenario. So all of a sudden, all these people on iPhones had opted out effectively of sharing their privacy information. And as a result, third-party cookie tracking was rendered useless.
So marketers, $10 billion. So Facebook, people were paying, or advertisers are paying Facebook to show these ads to people on their Apple devices. And when they made this decision, the advertiser could no longer see if that person actually viewed the ad, right? In a nutshell. And that's the cookie thing. Is that right,
And
Andy?
if they wanted to, there were people who had opted in, but they were a lot more expensive. So it caused two problems. One is the price of tracking people went up significantly, and the number of people went down significantly.
Right.
Yeah, it made these people more precious. They told a story about somebody who's in the article who's spending a cost of acquisition, like tripled or quadrupled overnight to find the same
customer acquisition. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was one story. The other story was the Google story, which is Google has gone back and forth on this one. They were going to disable cookie settings because a lot of, GDPR in Europe has had an impact on this, California privacy settings. There's been a trend toward this, and Apple made its big decision. So there's a lot of pressure on Google to get rid of third-party cookie tracking as well. And so they said, yes, we're going to do it. And they announced this long lead time and then just kept changing their mind, especially after Apple made their decision, because all those people advertising on Apple suddenly shifted over to Google. And so Google's like, well, wait a minute. Not only are we on the fence about doing this, but all of a sudden we've got all this new demand coming to us. So what did they do? They changed their mind again. So they've gone back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. They finally decided to postpone the decision. They took the courageous decision to do absolutely nothing. So that's where we were. So what is this sort of led to? Well, one of the conclusions you can draw, and this has been an interesting one, is that there's been a shift toward first-party cookie spending, meaning spending money on closed networks, not these networks where you can view people across everything. So what has happened, and you and I weren't even terribly familiar with this, the emergence of retail media networks, which, by the way, this is coming to a B2B e-commerce site near you. But what are these things? Well, you show in the next slide, we've seen the emergence of things like Walmart Connect, which enables a advertiser, let's call it Procter & Gamble, to spend money on Walmart in a variety of different ways. They always were able to do so with shopper marketing, like on, TVs in store, but now it's sponsored search on the website, it's online display advertising, it's offline media, in-store stuff we mentioned, brand shop and shelf sort of stuff, a point of purchase. And they recently, actually about a year ago, acquired Vizio, the guys who make TVs.
Interesting. Yeah.
Now they want to be able to advertise on Vizio through connected television, smart TV networks. And so Google or Walmart decided to get serious about this. And you can see they advertise on their website that you can reach 145 million customers through Walmart Connect. And in fact, it's led to the point where a lot of the brand advertisers are shifting money away from actual advertising to this, because Walmart's a closed community. They can tell you, they don't have to track people across multiple websites. There's one website, it's Walmart. So that's kind of B2C. And as we know, everything starts in B2C and migrates to B2B. Maybe one that hits closer to home is one on the right side of the screen that neither you nor I had even heard of.
Never heard of
which
this.
is called Orange Apron Media. And I wish we could do a poll and ask people what that is.
What is that, Andy?
Home Depot. So Home Depot now has a retail media network. And if you see at the bottom, it says Home Depot means advertising with them means reaching 198 million individual customers online and in our 2,340 stores. And they attract on their website 3.5 billion visits each year. So companies like Black & Decker, for example, are now looking at spending money with Home Depot's retail media. This is a direct result of what happened with Meta, Facebook, and Google. And so this is where dollars are going. And we're going to have a guest on here in a moment who's going to talk to us a bit about this. So just to put some context around it, we're talking about $20 billion in US B2B digital ad spending going to like $23 billion by 2026. I think this might even be off. These numbers are going to be higher than that. So it's $20 billion. And there have been some early winners here. Yeah. On the next slide. So LinkedIn has been a big winner here, and Meta. So between the two of them, according to eMarketer, they're going to dominate almost 50% of digital ad spending is going through LinkedIn and Meta. And of course, all those 216 in B2B.
This specifically.
Yeah, B2B alone. And then of course, these retail media networks are going to see spending there. But a couple of interesting things that, LinkedIn, according to eMarketer, is going to be almost 50% of B2B digital ads, which is video, et cetera, on LinkedIn. I mean, I always think about this, that what did Microsoft buy them for? $1 billion? What a steal that was. I mean, how much if LinkedIn was spun off, how much would it be worth? Not $1 billion, probably $500 billion. And Meta is doing a third of all B2B social ad spending. And then, of course, no discussion about any of this is complete without talking about Amazon. And this surprised us a little bit. It was actually, the number wasn't bigger, but Amazon's B2B ad revenues this year are projected to be about $1 billion, which was shocking that it was actually larger than that.
That number feels small to me, Andy. I think, if you look at it, I think maybe it's because it's B2B specifically. Right. If you look at their overall ad spend, it's tremendous, and they're growing, and it's the same thing. They're a closed network, right? So just like the others, and so marketers are dealing with this, and it's a real challenge. And we have a special guest that we want to introduce to you today, Mr. Dan Stepchew, Digital Marketing Director at Zest Dental Solutions. Dan, you are kind enough to join us today to talk about this impact on your business. Zest is a B2B company. Tell us a little more. Tell us a little more about Zest.
Sure. Hey guys. Yeah, as Andy said, everything that's B2C eventually migrates to B2B, and I did the same. So I'm also part of that paradigm. And came from a B2C background, joined Zest about a year ago. So Zest Dental Solutions is a company. It's a dental manufacturer that's been based in San Diego County for the last 50 years. Big player in overdentures, specifically the attachments that go onto your implants. So whatever you need to do to attach an implant to a prosthesis, to the denture, so you have an overdenture, is what they're known for. About 5 years ago, the shift to direct, so it was a traditional wholesale model, retail, shifted to direct, occurred, and they brought me in to take some of those B2C methodologies and apply them to the direct model.
Interesting. So you're not selling these products to consumers. You're selling these to dentists. I mean, this isn't a DIY product. I'm not putting this in my mouth.
Not yet. If I had it my way, it would be. But there's some regulatory concerns, but you'd be surprised. A lot of customers actually do shop for these things on Amazon.
Really?
Or distributors. Yeah.
Interesting. So tell us, Dan. I mean, you've dealt with this directly, this issue, right? What impact has it had? This these changes that have been happening in marketing and tracking.
Well, this goes back to my B2C days when working with Meta, or when it was Facebook. You'd be able to see incredible results that when iOS, I forget the version, but when that was released, we saw that, like you said, Andy, the cost of acquisition soared. And that's come down quite a bit. I think Facebook or Meta has been able to sort of figure out a way around that, especially using some of their new ad tools. But nevertheless, we had to get creative with how we spent our dollars, and then of course the pandemic hit, and it was sort of a 1-2 punch, and then a third punch hit when new privacy concerns, GDPR, got involved. So these are all good things, by the way. I'm not against privacy, of course. I remember being able to see all the companies that were tracking you across the internet, and it was scary. It was alarming.
Right.
But as a marketer, it's concerning now that we don't have all the tools that we used to have, and so we have to figure out how to get creative here.
You said your traffic and GA4 dropped. Google Analytics went through the freaking floor when this happened, right? Tell us about that.
So in an effort to again the best of intentions, we attempted to add GDPR privacy controls, allow people to opt out of cookie tracking beyond the essentials on our site, and in doing so, most people decided not to allow cookies, including Google's Google's tracker. And yeah, our traffic numbers in Google Analytics, what we used to report up to leadership, went down by half. So we were faced with a conundrum there.
Didn't you say too that it changed your KPIs, like what you were reporting to the C-suite? And he says about website sessions. You don't even report those anymore?
Don't even report them. Yeah, I don't even dive into it. What I'm trying to do is focus on revenue at this point.
Wow.
Whatever I can control. Yeah.
Because you can see revenue in your report, your ERP or whatever other reporting systems. Wow. Okay. So what has been the result of this? I mean, you just said you don't track these things anymore. You don't report on them anymore. What has been the impact, in terms of your own ability to get even investment for dollars to invest in this stuff?
Yeah, great question. And that's been the biggest struggle for me here is understanding how to get creative. And the one way that we're doing it is like Andy mentioned, these closed systems are able to report the data that they're able to collect. So what we need to do then is we look at what I call in-platform statistics. So Meta, for instance, is still collecting the same data that they were collecting before. So we measure what they give us against the previous period, and I report that up. And again, that's fine. It shows progress, but it's a black box, right? It's their data. It's not ours. And that's a big shift. And so I have to use all of these different in-platform data points to paint the picture that we're showing progress and additional investment is necessary.
So Dan, and one of the things that, B2B, you come from a B2C background. In B2B, historically, companies have invested in, I'll call it old school marketing, events and trade publications and things like that, right?
Yeah.
And has this dynamic kind of shifted where your marketing dollars that you have are going? As you look across your business, I mean, are we back to old school now because this tracking is not available?
Not if I can help it, but it certainly, there's a lot of pressure from commercial teams across the board to reinvest those dollars back into, like you said, traditional platforms like sponsoring events at conferences, taking out media ads on their emails, for instance, and because those things used to work 20 years ago. That was the name of the game, and then digital marketing sort of progressed forward. So now they're able to, punch holes in some of the reporting that we're getting back from the ad campaigns that we're investing in across all the different networks. So it's been a struggle. I need to figure out a way to show when a customer clicks on an ad in Facebook or Google, they purchase. And I need to just unify that data in one place. And that's been a difficult uphill battle here.
But I got to ask, do your compatriots on the other side who are making arguments for what we used to call measured media, right?
Uh-huh.
the which is funny. I always thought it was funny, but the trade shows, etc. Do they have the same standard of demonstration of ROI? So it feels like there's still a double standard. Like you became slightly less able to establish the connections. They've never been able to establish the connections.
Never. Right. Yeah. And that's my defense. And then we end up in a stalemate, right?
Right. Well, you developed an interesting framework, Dan, that I'll just share here real quick on the screen. And, you don't have to go into all the details on this for time, but tell us, how have you kind of worked around this? How are you making cases? What's this framework?
Yeah. So this all comes down to, how do we measure incrementality? So for every dollar that we put in, there's a sales team here at Zest. They're doing a great work on the ground, but if we're not measuring what they're doing against apples to apples, what we're doing digitally, then there's no way to show incrementality with the dollars that we're spending digitally. So what I tried to do here is to get around that and use sort of directional points. So in-platform revenue, what we can track online. Are we growing? What's the contribution margin? Traditional KPIs. And this definitely helps, but there's still ways to poke holes in this in these data points.
Yeah. So right. Well, that's the challenge here, and I don't know if we have a solution, but certainly looking at these kinds of metrics can be helpful. Are you and your budget within your world? Have you shifted more to those sort of closed networks like we talked about earlier? Have you put more into that versus into the metas and other tools?
It's interesting. We are looking at those. We just began investing heavily into Meta here at Zest. Traditionally, we weren't even doing that. So, we're just establishing the foundation into other networks beyond just the traditional sort of Google sponsored content. We're an e-commerce site as well, right? So we spend a lot of money in Google Shopping. So anything in addition to that is brand new here.
So Dan, I have to ask a question about this, and I think we have to move to the next slide on this, but you said Meta, and you said that this is mostly targeted at dentists, right? You said you have maybe a consumer component where people shop. Who are you targeting on Meta? Are you targeting my dentist on Meta?
Absolutely. Yeah, dentists use Facebook too. And it's actually quite effective. It's scary that they are probably on their phones looking at Instagram in between patients, but they are.
Right. Remember, Andy, these millennials are now the bulk of B2B buyers. That includes dentists.
Yers, aren't they? Your dentist could be a Gen Y at the age of 42 or 43. So I'm going to ask my dentist next time, are you hanging out on Facebook?
Are you looking at my teeth or are you looking at your feed? Come on, man. All right. No, this is good. So we asked our audience about this, and Dan, I love your instant reaction to this. We asked the question, are privacy policies making ad tracking more difficult, like Apple's, reducing or preventing your company's use of digital marketing? Wow. 67% said they're reducing their use of digital marketing, and 17% said they're preventing use. That's 83%, guys, that say, hey, this stuff is preventing me from investing in or reducing my investments in digital marketing. Dan, instant reaction. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a tragedy. It's a huge opportunity for a business that can figure this out for us. If it's not Google, it's going to be someone.
Yes. Yeah, no doubt. All right. Well, yeah, I mean, clearly the audience is our community is taking this seriously. And it's kind of a shame because, B2B is really just getting started with a lot of these things. Dan, thanks so much for joining us today. We appreciate your time and comments. And thanks again for being part of our Friday 15. So let's just do a couple quick announcements, Andy, before we wrap up. We're at over Friday 20 as usual. Folks, we're going to be at B2B Online in Florida in just a couple of weeks. Those of you who are joining there, please let us know. Practitioners, we have a couple of dinners we're hosting. We'd love to meet up with you one-on-one and spend some time understanding what you're doing in B2B e-commerce. That's B2B Online Florida in November, I think it's 17th through 19th. Also, folks, want to remind you that we have our forum, which is an online practitioner-only and free network for practitioners. We have hundreds and hundreds of people in there. We're having conversations there every week, every day, talking about issues like the one we just talked about, amongst many others. You can go to our website, masterb2b.com, click on forum, and you will find you can sign up there. And I want to remind everyone that our podcasts are available in podcast form on Google, Spotify, Apple, and whatever your favorite platform is. And you can check it out on our website as well. So any final words before we wrap our Friday 15 for this week?
Yeah, that was kind of interesting. It's the first time we've done two things. One is had a guest speaker. That was cool. And also talk about marketing.
Yes.
So we drifted into two new realms at the same time, and I think it went pretty well.
I think so too. It was great. And Dan Stepchew, thank you again. It was great to get his input, and he's living this day to day. So thank you, Dan. Appreciate that. And we'll see everyone next time on our next Friday 15 next Friday. Thanks everyone for listening.